Lesson number 10, Justice. In this lesson, we'll learn about one of our three principles of democracy, which are justice, equality, and liberty. So this lesson will focus on justice. When you hear the word justice, I want you to think of a word that you probably hear more often than justice, judge. Think about what a judge does in a courtroom. A judge decides if someone and oversees a court process where someone is decided as guilty or not guilty of a crime. So a judge administers justice, meaning making sure that someone that did something wrong gets what they deserve, or someone that was wronged, like a victim, gets justice in some way, or it's made up to them in some way. Maybe the person that did something wrong to them goes to jail, or has to pay a fine, or has to pay them money in some way. So that's what justice is. But we'll talk about it a little bit more in the next few slides. Our objectives: you'll be able to define justice. You'll be able to describe examples of justice and injustice. We'll get into what injustice means on one of the slides. Students will evaluate what is fair and what is not fair. So that's what I want you to think about when you think about justice. The difference between fair and unfair or not fair. Our essential questions are: what is justice? What systems of justice do we have today? You'll learn more about those in the assignment for this lesson. How did specific historical figures and documents shape the Constitution? Or that's our ongoing essential question. We're looking at the principles, justice, liberty, and equality, and what they have to do with how we do things in the United States. Remember, how we do things is laid out by the Constitution. So a definition of justice to get us started. All people should be treated fairly. No group should be favored. So no matter who you are or what you are, you should receive the same treatment as everybody else. Remember, we're going to focus primarily on the court system because that's what makes sure that justice happens in this country. So when something happens that is unjust or goes against justice, that's what the court system is there for, to decide if something has been done wrong or incorrectly. So civics is the study of citizenship and government. We're looking at what our lives have to do with the government, how we as citizens and the government interact. A big part of that is justice. It's the responsibility of the government, and not just the federal government, not just the government in Washington, D.C., like Obama and Congress and the Supreme Court. It's also the responsibility of local government. So if there's a courthouse in your town, the police in your town, they're a part of justice as well. It's the job of local authorities, like we said, like a court in your town or the police in your town, to make sure that justice is followed, to make sure that what happens to people is fair. Maybe some examples of justice. Let's imagine Mr. Simmons allows a group of girls to have 5 extra minutes of recess while the boys had to clean the room. The following day, Mr. Simmons allows the boys to have 5 extra minutes of recess while the girls had to clean the room. So in this example, the teacher and myself is making sure that things are fair. That, yes, the room does need to be cleaned and it's something that needs to happen. So one day, one group does it, the girls, and the next day another group does it, the boys. So just because they're different in some way, boys and girls, they're still having to do the same thing. There's still fairness there. And they're both rewarded for that by having 5 extra minutes of recess. That's fairness. That's an example of justice. The second one, imagine a family goes for a fun afternoon of cherry picking. When they start, each member of the family gets a basket. Everybody is equally excited to start picking cherries, but the trees are so tall that the 2-year-old can't reach any cherries, and the 5-year-old can only reach a few cherries. The family shares all of the cherries to be fair. So just because some of the people in the families are shorter than other people, they make sure at the end that everyone gets a fair share of all the cherries that they picked. It's another example of justice, of fairness. So is there always justice in the United States? Definitely not. There's always examples of injustice, which means that justice is not served, that something happens that is unfair, that doesn't go with justice. Quick examples. And there's a lot of them we could come up with. I just picked an easy one that I thought you guys could understand. In the 1800s, women were not allowed to go out without a chaperone. Men could go out whenever they would like. That's unfair. Just because they're men, they get to go out whenever they want to. But just because they're women, they have to go out with a chaperone. That's an example of injustice or something being unfair. 2 children forgot to wash their hands before dinner, but their mother only saw one child forget. She sent that child to bed without any dinner and allowed the second to eat as much as he wanted. That's unfair as well. The mother didn't see both of the kids, that's true, but the second kid still got away with something. That's unfair. That's an example of injustice. Another example that's not up here that I wanted to describe to you guys so you could better understand this is imagine that someone goes to like a convenience store and they steal. Let's say they steal a candy bar. If that person was then to go through the court system and they were got life in prison for stealing the candy bar, was justice served? Well, they did something wrong and they got a penalty, like they should, but does the penalty fit the crime? I don't think so. I don't think life in prison is a good penalty for stealing a candy bar. It's a little too strict. So that would be an example of injustice as well. The penalty, even though the person did something wrong, the penalty is unfair. It's too much for what the person did. So remember, we went over the justice and injustice. Justice is fairness. Injustice is unfairness. So now you can define justice. We looked at some examples of both justice and injustice, and I'm sure you could come up with some on your own now. And in the assignment, you're going to be able to evaluate or look at some situations and decide what's fair and what's not fair. Be sure to answer the questions that are below my face. There's only 3 of them. If you need anything, please contact me. If not, good luck.